to start animating the lip syncing with our project here, what we're going to need to do is to add in additional mouth views to our mouth drawing layer. So I can click on the mouth drawing layer right here. And once it's been selected, I want to add additional drawing views, so additional mouth shapes. The mouth shapes that I'm trying to add correspond to the different sounds that we need to represent, as your handout will attest to, and then we will line those up accordingly. And if you don't get the order quite right or anything else, it's easy enough to fix and modify, and all will be fine and correct with the universe. So don't worry too much about it. But right now we have what is effectively referred to as our X, or our neutral mouth shape. That's the basic neutral shape that we're starting with. Now, when I'm doing this, I don't like to be in the main timeline view. I like to be in my drawing view for this. I find that just makes things easier for me. So I'm going to go and select drawing. When I select that, I can see the mouth. I can also see the rest of the head went away. If that's troubling to you, we can turn on our light table. So I can turn on my light table here, and now it shows me approximately what that head looks like. But I am now in my mouth drawing layer. So if I open up my features and go down, we'll see I am now in that mouth drawing layer. That is what I am looking at. And this is the first drawing for the mouth. Now, if I want to add an additional drawing to the mouth, I'm going to want a little bigger pen to go with that. To add an additional drawing to the mouth, inside my timeline, I am going to click on the Create Empty Drawing. And when I do that, it looks like the mouth just disappeared on us. But what it's done is it's now created an additional drawing shape, or a drawing that we can now add to our exposure. And if I go to my library, I'll see that I had no mouth. I have the first drawing for the mouth, and now I am working on the second drawing. So once I draw this, and this is going to be, all right, I need to change my brush. That's just a little too small still. I'm now able to create that consonant shape where the lips are pursed, they're tight. If you're wanting to look at what you could do, you could look on the shape and see that for that M sound, the lips typically stretch tight. You can always pull up in Photo Booth, and you can now look and see yourself on screen and study that. So whatever works for you to study the different mouth shape to create it. Once we've created this drawing, then we can add an additional drawing by again clicking on the Create Empty Drawing for the next mouth shape. I think it's useful to do it in the order as it appears, where Animate Pro, we have our MBPH, that pursed closed mouth shape. Then you will have the consonant sounds as our next one. We're making now what would be drawing B, and do the drawings in this order. It's best to do them in this order, not to kind of do them in some random order. Then you're going, well, what shape does that belong to? I can't remember anymore. Do them in that order. You can look at the mouth charts and see, so for the consonant sounds, that the mouth is open, we see the teeth. You can pull up Photo Booth, you can make the expression yourself, try and say that consonant sound, and see that the mouth is open a little bit. The top teeth are generally exposed, the lips are pulled reasonably tight. So you can now work on that. So again, create empty drawing. And now I can create that basic mouth shape. I can draw some teeth in there if I want that. I'm not going to worry about coloring it right now. I'll do the coloring after I have all of the mouth shapes done, because it's really fast to go through and do the coloring afterward. So that gives me my, now what would be my third mouth shape. I have my neutral mouth. Then I have my M sound, closed mouth, and now I have the open consonant sound, and now I can just keep working my way through those drawings. So create an empty drawing, and then add in your next mouth. One thing you will notice, you can turn on onion skinning, turn it off, and absolutely nothing happens because there is nothing to onion skin yet, because this mouth shape is on the same view or the same exposure all the way through, so there's no change. Now that exposure is something under library. We looked at it once before where we have our basic shape, and we can now choose the different mouth views. So we can have no mouth, or I can now have mouth 1. If I advance to a new frame and say mouth 2, you will now see how that is now being onion skinned. I can advance another frame and it change my mouth, and so what we can do is we can see in the onion skinning, we can now see those different drawings. I can advance to another frame, move to my next empty mouth, so there's my previous mouth that I had, and now I can move on to draw my next shape. So the next shape that I will be drawing as part of this is going to be my short vowel sound. So it'll be the ah kind of sound with it. So the mouth is open, but it's not stretched real wide, but it's more narrow and open. So with this one now, I'm getting the more narrower open. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you are drawing and animating the mouth for lip syncing is that the upper jaw is attached to the skull. So the teeth, the top of the mouth, when you think about that, that moves with the head. So when the head moves, that part moves. So that should not be changing in your drawing. The placement of the upper teeth shouldn't change. You can change the upper lip, but not the upper teeth. It's the lower jaw, which is hinged, and that can go up and down, and the teeth will be changing location based on how open the mouth is. But the upper teeth and upper jaw will not be changing. You just change the shape of the lip. So you really, if you've figured out where the teeth are, the upper teeth should be the same in every single mouth shape where you can see them. Just change the lips. So now again, I can advance to my next frame. I can add an empty drawing. Now I can see the previous one, and now on this one I know that my teeth are going to be here, and this is going to be where the mouth is stretched open and across for the A. And you can study it again. Look in the mirror, look in photo booth, and if you want, you can put a tongue in so we can see that. I don't like that. You can, mark around the lower lip. Maybe now I finally see some lower teeth because the mouth is open more. Yeah, I don't like that. I'm just going to leave it open. Again, to repeat the process, add a new empty drawing, and now I can create my O sound. So if my teeth are here, now I'll have the mouth coming down, trying to get into more of the O sound with it. So we can see O, and then, but that's different than the oo sound. When you have the oo sound, so again, figure out the shape that fits with your particular mouth character that you're working with. And then we have oo sound. We can just paint it however you want. Then you have your FV. So figure out your different shapes, again corresponding it so that you're lining up with the different shapes that Animate Pro wants. I added in one too many. I forgot. We only have 3 of the kind of oo sounds, or 2, not 3, that we sometimes otherwise use. And then the F, V sound. looking like you're putting your upper teeth onto your lips. Now, once you have your different mouth shapes present, you can go through and color them, and it's very easy. You don't have to scrub the timeline. You can also use the square bracket keys to cycle through the different mouth shapes that you have. So the square bracket keys, when that layer is active, will cycle through the different drawings. Again, you have to have your keyboard shortcut set to Animate Pro, but now the square bracket keys above the return key on the keyboard will now navigate through my different drawings. Now, I'm going to turn off onion skinning because I don't want to see that while I'm looking at this. And once I have this in place, I can think about coloring it. Now, I know as part of the coloring here, I will want to have an additional color that's going to be kind of a darker red color that I can use more for the mouth area. So choose a darker red, make it a little more kind of darker purple or red, because he is part of the Blue Man group, so it makes sense it should be more purpley. Put that in. And now that I've done that, I can grab my paint bucket. I can zoom in here to make it easier to select. And with the paint bucket, use the square bracket keys to navigate through, and now just filling in that mouth shape color. And then I can select white for the teeth, and I can fill that in. And now that I have completed that, I have my different mouth shapes. And that's part one of getting ready for doing the lip syncing, is to build our different mouth shapes. And once you have them, you can just cycle through and choose them. This same technique of having different drawings for a piece of artwork is going to also allow us to be able to create blinking animations for the eyes, where we can just draw a simple closed eye shape, and because we've already set up the eye with the cutter, we don't even have to do any skin color. All we have to do is just paint the line of the closed eye, and then that will work perfectly. So it's going to be really efficient as a way to work, and we'll see that momentarily. The next thing that we're going to look at is, now that we have our different mouth shapes, and if you have extra ones, if you have ones you don't like, you drew them out of order, one thing is we need to work on the correct naming for these mouth shapes, and there's a way that we can go about doing this. So as I look at what's present, and as I said before, we can put these different mouth shapes in our timeline if we want, so that we can use onion skinning if we don't and wanted everything just to be the same drawing exposed. You could go through and change it, and you'll notice that in my timeline, those demarcations of what frame is being exposed is now changing. So I can go through and change the mouth to whatever form or shape it's supposed to be, even no mouth or drawing 0. So these drawings that we have, and as we look at them, it can all be adjusted and set up accordingly. I think I might even be able to cheat and highlight a bunch and mark them all as one. Now, with this, there's another view that we can use, and we haven't talked about this yet, but it's one of the more useful views when we're trying to rename things, because I don't know, can I do it here? So we can do it here. We can also, let's just say, I'm going to make a bad mouth as well, since I don't have any that I want to delete, but if I did want to delete a mouth, so let's say I said there's another mouth in here, and this mouth turned out to be my ugly mouth, and it's like, oh crap, that's not what I need. And now I look here, and now it shows up as number 9. We don't want that. Well, one thing we can do is we can right-click on it, but I'm right-clicking in the timeline. I'm not right-clicking on the artwork. And then we can choose Drawing, Delete Selected Drawing, and we can now see it did disappear from my list. It sometimes is a little bit hard. Ooh, and I just turned off most of them out there. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to, I lost my normal mouth as well. And bring that back. So somehow I deleted that mouth as well. Yeah, so deleting in this view is not my preferred way, but what we can also do is use the X sheet. And we'll take a look at the X sheet here. And the X sheet, I'll need the bigger section of my display to look at it. This is my X sheet, or my exposure sheet. That's X for exposure. And now if we look, here's the mouth layer. And we can see in the exposure sheet, it tells me what drawing of that drawing layer is currently being viewed. So we can see now at this point drawing 9 is being viewed, and at this point drawing 1 is being viewed. And notice in my drawing substitution we can also see how it changes. And now if I click and choose a different view, so on that mouth we can see it starts at 1, then it goes 5, 8, 9. So I can see now which of my drawings, or change that 1 to 6. We can see it changes in the exposure sheet. The exposure sheet is goes back to when drawings would be specified in the exposure sheet, so that the camera operator, when they were taking pictures of the drawings for actual film-based animation, they knew what drawings were to be exposed on any given frame. So on the left-hand column I have my frames, then I have my layers, and then I have which drawing for that layer is to be exposed. Now when we just have numbers on these, it isn't always as useful of figuring out which drawing is being used. And this is where renaming the drawings is really useful. So if I look here at my drawing 1 is my X, or my closed mouth shape. And if I right click on it, I can go under drawings and I have an option to rename it. Now if your keyboard shortcuts are set to Animate Pro and not Flash, then at that point when you are in your exposure sheet view, it will work out to be somewhere on here. Renaming a drawing is going to be Command D. It's somewhere. I can't find it in here, but it is Command D, because if I right click here, we'll see drawings. Rename is Command D. If your keyboard shortcuts are still set to Adobe Flash, it has, instead of, I think it's Command Shift D or Option Shift D or some other such nonsense, so you can go figure it out. But if I'm on drawing 1, I can right click, drawing, rename drawing. It comes up with this little rename drawing dialog. Now, naming the drawings, we want to name our drawings A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and X. X being our neutral, just closed mouth, basic, boring mouth shape. It must be with a capital letter. Otherwise, when you try to have it automatically lip sync, if you name your drawings with lowercase letters, it will generate an error message because it can't reconcile. It's like, wait, that's close, but no, I don't like you. And it gives you an error message. So at this point, it's worth it to type in with a capital letter. So I hit my cap lock key so I don't have to think about it anymore. And now I call that one X. Now I can, in my exposure sheet, I can just go to my next drawing here, and that's going to be drawing 2, and I'm changing it in my library to quickly go through. And again, Command D, and this is going to be A. Now another way that I can cycle through drawings is with the square bracket key, so I don't even have to click up here. I can just hit a square bracket key, and you all notice we can get all the way through. And notice numbers come before letters, so it's putting them in a effectively in alphabetized order. So now this next drawing is going to be B. So I hit Command D. I will call this one B. And now I can hit my square bracket keys to cycle back through. Command D, C, and repeat until I've gone all the way through my alphabet. So we have X, C, B, A, Command D. And if I hit Command D and nothing happens, I have to click on that frame in the exposure sheet so it knows that's what I want. And then I can type in my letter. Command D, E. F, and finally G. So when it's done, I should have, and then I have an empty frame. Now if I end up with a frame that I don't want, I can right click on it, and at this point, drawings, delete selected drawing, it goes away. So I should have nothing, then A, B, C, D, E, F, G, X. That gives me my mouth shapes, all named with capital letters. And once you have your mouth symbol set up that way, you are now ready to bring in the audio and have it set the lip syncing. The next thing that we need to do is bring the audio in. To bring the audio in, we are not adding a sound layer in the timeline, but instead we will just choose File. Oh, got to get in the right program there. File, Import, Sound. When we do this, it will automatically add the audio layer for us. I'll go to the desktop, and I know that I have a sound file. I dropped it in here. Can go and grab it, and it sticks in my sound file. If I scroll to the top, I will see there is my sound file waiting for me to do something. Now, if I want to map my head to this, when I look at this, my audio is, the audio I have is about 300 frames long. Currently, my project is 60 frames long, so that's not really going to work very well. But I can take my scene and modify the scene length. So the scene length is currently at 60. I know I need 300. 24 frames a second. If you know how long your audio is, you can do the basic math and figure your project out. I just extended my project now out. And now we can see there is the audio. I'm just going to turn off the audio scrubbing up here so when I scrub it doesn't go. And we can see, hey, look, there it is. Can go back to camera view even. And if we notice the head disappeared because its exposure ended here. When our head is set up with a master peg, if we collapse everything and then extend the exposure for that, it will extend out all the different features. If I open it up and now like clicked on the ear artwork, and if I wanted to extend each layer, I could, but that'd really get tedious. And this is even simple artwork. But if I just extend out the master here, so I can go down to the end, and then I can just hit F5. So I clicked at the end in my master peg layer with everything collapsed. So notice all my layers are gone. I hit F5, and now the head is sitting there waiting for something to happen. So that extends it out. When you go to play your project, if you want to hear your audio or hear it when you scrub the timeline, you need to check these two boxes for sound up top here. So now I can scrub and hear the audio. I'm just going to leave it off so it's not too distracting the recording at the moment. Now it's time to do the lip syncing. This is where we will let Animate Pro help us out. So I can right click on my audio and we'll see that there is now my lip sync option, and I can say auto lip sync detection, and then I can say map lip sync. Now, when I do that, one thing I will notice is my source is demo, that's my audio layer. My destination layer that I'm trying to now change, well, it thinks I want to lip sync my ear. It's probably not going to be a good fit. It's not like he's talking out of his ear. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, stick a babblefish in your ear, maybe, but not here. So I need to change my destination layer to mouth so I can use that. And if I hadn't renamed my layers or my different drawings in my mouth, I would have to then correspond which number corresponded to A through X. That's kind of hard to do here. I think it's easier just to rename your drawings and be done with it. And now when I hit OK, it's going to remap it. And now if I scrub the timeline, I will see that it is indeed working. I'm going to then just pull his features back. So if I go grab the nose, hit B a few times to get back onto his features. Gonna make sure I'm animating with the peg. And now I can pull that over. There's his features. I can pull this ear back. And now when he speaks, we'll see his mouth is here. The good part is, even as he is here, if I click on this nose, too far. And sorry, my mouse got a little jumpy there. But if I move this over and pull this over here, so we create this turn, we can see he's still talking while the head is turning. That's one of the nice features about doing this is it corresponds. And to find out if this lined up automatically, I can turn on the audio, and then I can even just hit play and we'll watch the thing play and see if it works. It seems that all that ever happens to me is people grab my face and pull at that. So it seems that with my audio that my mouth shapes are lining up pretty effectively. If you find that your audio that you're using, it's not working quite correct, we can see how the drawing exposures are now changed down here in the timeline. I'm just going to turn off scrubbing so I can scrub. So we can see these different shapes, but if I need to go to something else, I can just go over to my library and decide, well, perhaps I wanted to go to this frame instead. So I could just change what's being exposed at that frame. Or if you added additional drawings, say you made an actual L drawing that has the tongue kind of on the roof of the mouth so we can see underneath the tongue that la, 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 kind of with the curl in the tongue, and you drew that, and you have that drawing, you can now select that if your audio has an L sound. You just navigate to the correct spot and then just change what drawing is being exposed. So if you draw additional mouth shapes, that can be a way to get much greater finesse in your animation than just having A through G plus X. And remember, A through G are not, the A, B, C, D, F, G are not corresponding to sounds, but they're corresponding to different phonetic shapes that the mouth is taking. Use our reference chart as your guide for what to choose.